Hello everyone, today we have one of the most unique decks I have ever seen. Reached the top 4 in a 128 player Swiss tournament into a bracketed finish. This reached the top 4 decks in a competition that had something like 40 high evolutionary Lockjaw decks, a plethora of other decks that it had to go up into. And this deck, when I first built it, I had no idea what my lines were, what the plans were, how I was going to steal away games. But this deck is surprisingly very flexible. It is one of the biggest brain decks I have ever seen, and the creativity that it took to build this is insane. This was piloted by a user, and I apologize if I say this incorrectly. It's Ororong, and they did a phenomenal job. They ultimately got knocked out in the top 4 round against the Galactus, so both the first and second place players were piloting Galactus, and unfortunately this deck doesn't have any direct counters to that Galactus play. Maybe there's a way that you build that in, but as is, this deck has an incredible amount of kind of surprise factor, and you're going to coax your opponent into staying for bigger cube games more often. You're able to entice 4 and 8 cube games because most of the time they're not going to have any idea what you're planning on doing or what you're doing over the course of this game. So you can hide the Attuma behind the Invisible Woman, you can consolidate your cards with a Venom and then yank it into a different lane with a Ghost Spider. You could hide Shang-Chi behind the Invisible Woman to swing back those big impactful lanes back in your favor if you anticipate that they're going to be dropping some big cards throughout the game in that lane. And then you can focus on other locations. You also have the ability to do a Heimdall shift to move your power into a stormed location, move your power into harder to reach locations, a Spider-Man locked lane. You can position power over there more effectively and more efficiently, giving yourself a lot of ways to find ways to win. And I'm about 20 to 25 games into this deck, and never once was I like, I know exactly how this game is going to go. You can typically look at a deck and know pretty well how it's going to want to navigate through most matches. But with this one, it really depends on what you're facing, what you draw into, and what it looks like the locations are. It's going to dictate how you run this deck, and you can find a way to win against just about anything that is really common in the meta, with the exception of Galactus being very difficult to match into. There is a very niche line that you could use to try to beat the Galactus, so the Invisible Woman into hiding a Shang-Chi along with your death to give you that swing power factor back in your favor. But a lot of those counters and a lot of those tools could be drawn out by a Doc Ock, and it just becomes very hard to hit that consistently against that very common deck. But otherwise, I have had an incredible amount of fun with this list. It feels like one that is going to be very satisfying. If you're able to master the different paths, the different plays that this deck has to offer, you can surprise your opponent, I would say almost every single game, with some type of play or some type of reach that you have that they're just not going to anticipate. And so we're going to go ahead and jump over into a couple of games. I hope that you guys enjoy. And once again, thank you Ororong for running this in the SnapBattleArena's 128-man tournament over the weekend. Congratulations on your top 4 finish. Hopefully you have some very successful conquest modes and future tournaments up your sleeve. Thank you guys, as always, for being here. Go ahead and jump over into a couple of games. All right, first up we have Corsan. The first location is Wakandan Embassy. This deck is wild, you guys. Never have I felt like I have no idea what I'm doing as much as when I played this deck. It's one of the most wild decks I have ever played. Now, the Attuma is fantastic for the Invisible Woman or with Venom, or you can use Venom in a lane and then yank it out to clear up the location with something like your Ghost Spider. Just all kinds of craziness that this deck just enables. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to do something kind of strange. We're going to use Reality Stone in Sakaar, and then I'm going to yank it over into Wakandan Embassy. Next turn, I intend to kind of consolidate that power with our Venom. And that way, no matter what this turns into, it's fine, and it'll be okay. We're not going to pull into those random cards. I don't want them to get more value than we do, and we have some pretty low cost or low value cards in general. Now, this is a Kitty Pryde deck that we're going up against, and so we'll see. Venom is actually going to move here. It will eat this lane, and then it'll move over into Astrodem, which is kind of cool. We can also leverage the Invisible Woman as a way to stack Attuma and a few other 3 or 4 cost cards into a lane, and then make sure that we have Astrodem filled up before the end of the game triggers, so that those cards aren't going to pull over in that direction. And so, gosh, I always feel like I have no idea what is going on with this deck, because there are so many potential lines that it's just crazy flexible and scary, because you could usually convince your opponent to stay for bigger games than they normally would, and it's one of the most unique decks I have ever seen. I'm gonna go ahead and do Invisible Woman. I'm gonna do Space Stone just to get some additional draw. One of the things that I do like to do is hide Heimdall behind the Invisible Woman, just as that like surprise last turn, just burst of power into 2 different lanes when the opponent's not going to be anticipating it. Now in something like Conquest, whenever that comes out, that will be a little bit different, but I think in general, it's a good kind of sneaky play for you to do. So our death is playable here because of the Venom. We can move 1 card over into Wakanda Embassy if we want to, courtesy of the Space Stone, but I don't think we do. I think we're going to hide the death behind the Invisible Woman lane. Right now they're running a Kitty Pryde, Luke Cage, Moon Knight, so I don't really know what kind of deck Coruscant's running either. Black Bolt does get rid of our Power Stone. That's unfortunate, but it is okay. They could be running a Stature deck, maybe? Stature could do pretty big things. So if we do Heimdall, that's going to leave death here so we can double stack in this lane. We're going to get a little bit of extra reach in this left lane. I don't know that it's enough. It really comes down to where Coruscant ends up playing their resources. We could also just like hide a Shang-Chi and a Soul Stone under this lane, but I think we're okay in this. But I think we're okay because we do have the Death's power. The Heimdall shift is the fun one. That's what we're going to go with. Heimdall shift. Maybe they have like a Shang-Chi that they were going to take out our Asteroid M with, and we're going to make sure that that is not the case anymore. Okay, so the big Kitty Pryde comes down, and then the Stature comes down, but our death is bigger than the Stature. We have the death, we have the Venom, we have the Heimdall shift to be able to win the 2 cubes. This is such a like unique deck that I think at least right now it has so many different lines that it can give you that surprise factor of the opponent has no idea what you intend to do, and so you can get some big net cube gains out of it. Let's go ahead and take the 2. We'll jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have Domino. The first location is Xandar. We have the Reality Stone that we can change a location. We have Time Stone to ramp into like an early magic maybe, but I am going to do the Soul Stone first. If we use Venom in this lane, then we'll be able to consolidate that power. We can maneuver it around the board. We now have the Invisible Woman to hide some of our surprise factor cards. Time Stone is going to be doubly effective in Camartage. And so I think that's what we want to lean in on. We don't need too much from it. So I think we do Time Stone and then Reality Stone to change it twice. That is going to cap out our hand, but that's completely fine because the opponent's not going to have any chance to capitalize on the Camartage location before we yank it away. And so normally I like to kind of conserve the Reality Stone, but in this case, I think we're going to do it early. I think we're going to pull the trigger early just to make sure that they are not going to be able to benefit. Miniaturized Lab is a wild one, so now we can't consolidate here, they can't consolidate here, and so it becomes kind of difficult to position power. I mean, we do have the Heimdall. We'll be able to shift some stuff out of Baxter Building, but I think it's going to be more beneficial to like hide stuff with the Invisible Woman. I think we're going to go Ghost Spider to pull the Reality Stone. We use Venom to consolidate those cards. That'll discount our death. Next turn, we could do something like an Invisible Woman plus a Power Stone, and we can kind of leverage a few of our different resources. And so we're going to go ahead and use the newly released Ghost Spider. I think using her in a full movement deck is a little bit of overkill, but I do like the utility that she provides in certain scenarios. Ooh, so the Wave comes down. That's the first card that we've seen from Domino. Unfortunately, that could mean that they have a Galactus. We have a couple of ways to deal with Galactus, but none of them are fantastic. I'm going to assume that they are going Galactus. I'm going to use Invisible Woman. That way we can at least kind of consolidate some of our cards. We can save it. Ooh, with the Wave, they probably have Spider-Man though, right? We're going to risk it. We shouldn't, but we're going to. Ooh, the Kang. Okay. And so they snapped into a Kang, interestingly enough. And you don't see Kang all that often because he doesn't really provide too much for you in most games. he gives you a little bit of a read into kind of some insight into what that turn's going to be. So I do think we still go with the Invisible Woman. Next turn we could do our Death and something else. The Galactus is kind of what I would have assumed would come down here. And so if we get a Shang-Chi, we can use that to counter any of their big cards. And we'll see. The Death is still pretty expensive because not a lot of cards got destroyed. But they could drop a Spider-Man, which would be kind of tough to deal with. We could do Magic, but that's not going to be fantastic for us. I think we do Death just in case they do a Spider-Man. I don't think we're confident enough to do both Death and Power Stone, because I would still like the ability to potentially draw into our Shang-Chi. That's going to be a lot of value for us. But I think we probably see Spider-Man come down here, yeah. And so we know Death was like 4, right? So a Null would be 9 power at 6 cost. A Death is 4 cost. They do a Shang-Chi, they can't do that and really anything big, so we have this hidden factor. We shouldn't. Most of the time you shouldn't stay against a Galactus unless you just know that you can get the win. I kind of want to stay and see this one out. They play 2 cards here. The Shang-Chi does come down against the Venom. What is this last card? And can our 12 power Death overcome it? The Yondu. That's going to be incredibly close. I think we do overcome that by what, 1 or 2 power? And so we are able to steal the 4 cubes away from the Domino. Oh no. Away from the Galactus. This is insanity. The amount of games that you're going to get 4 and 8 cubes just early on, while this is a really unknown kind of deck, are absolutely absurd. We will absolutely take the 4 cubes. Let's go ahead and jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have Tonberry. The first location is Asgard. We can change that one if we don't think we can win it. We can change it with Reality Stone. I'm going to start with the Space Stone, though. We don't necessarily need to maneuver cards too much. It just does give a little bit of value. All right, so Asteroid M will pull cards over into that location. I'm going to go with Jeff into Asgard. Right now, we're going to be trying to see if maybe we can fight for the location to get the additional card draw. Ooh, with Atilin, we definitely don't like that location. We don't want our cards to shuffle back in, so I'm going to go with Reality Stone there. And then let's go ahead and go with Power Stone into Asgard for now. And then from there, we may adjust depending on what the Reality Stone pulls into. And so it switches over into Shuri's Lab. So everything we play there is going to get doubled, which will be kind of cool for something like playing a card there and then shifting it with Heimdall later, potentially. Mind Stone is going to pull the last stone out of our deck. Time Stone, that will make sure that Time Stone draws us an actual resource. I feel like we need to... I know that Ghost Spider will pull Time Stone out of Asgard. I'm okay with that. We're all right with it. And so Mind Stone pulls out the Soul Stone. Time Stone gives us the Venom, which will help us consolidate some of our cards on this next turn, especially in something like Shuri's Lab, which does get capped out by Polaris here, unfortunately. It's really unfortunate. We win the Asgard location, but our hand is very, very full, so we're not really going to get any benefit there. We've already played the Space Stone, so we won't be able to move out of Shuri's Lab. It becomes very difficult from here. It looks like we're running up against a Silver Surfer. The best thing we could hope for would be like a turn 6 Heimdall to shift some cards around, and then we could like Carnage and Venom maybe. It becomes very difficult. We're going to go ahead and play the Soul Stone to get 1 additional draw. We have 4 cards, only 4 cards left in our deck. We're going to get through just about all of them by the end of this game. Invisible Woman is one that's remaining, Devil Dino, Death, and Heimdall. Some big heavy hitters that are left in our deck. And so we get Death. They play a Sarah. Okay. I don't believe... Ooh, they could have a Storm. Storm would be devastating. I'm going to really hope that they don't have Storm. We are going to eat a few of our cards. I doubt they do a Killmonger to destroy the Nova here, but the Storm could just be too much. If they snap here after we've blocked in this turn, we have to tuck tail and run. All right, next up we have Ross. They were on a break. Geller. First location is Jotunheim. 0 does come down. So it's maybe a Shuri deck, like a 0 Shuri deck. I'm going to tentatively just play Jeff. I want to know what that last location is before we play Invisible in there. Now, the good thing about a Shuri deck is that we might have the opportunity to do a big Shang-Chi. They do 0 into Ebony Maw, which is massive value, into Necrotia, which is massive reduction, unless they have a loot cage. Let's go Invisible Woman here, and then that's going to be our kind of safety net lane. A Heimdall shift would be pretty good at pushing things in Jotunheim without having it be like a negative impact or a negative influence. What do we get from Expansion? Gamora and Rockslide. Oof. And so their Gamora could have been pretty scary. At least we get the value from Rockslide. I think maybe we do some fancy footwork. We're gonna hide Ghost Spider in the Necrotia lane. Just because. If we end up doing a Heimdall, we don't necessarily have to do it in the Invisible Woman lane. Once that reveals, it'll pull the Heimdall over. Ooh, Sinister London is scary. Oops. Definitely a big oops. That is not what we intended to do. It feels bad, but I think we're just going to do Devil Dino once. We can do Shang-Chi into Sinister London, but we want them to play some big cards first. So the Red Skull, the Shuri, the Taskmaster, we want those to come down before we drop our Shang-Chi. And so this guarantees where that Shang-Chi will go. It's going to go here, and then the second one will be guaranteed to go into this lane. We have the pretty big Devil Dino in this lane. I think we have a good shot, unless they have an armor. Armor would completely derail this strategy. They do use the Taskmaster, and so we're going to take out their middle location pretty heavily. We're going to jump over into Jotunheim, take out the Jotunheim lane very drastically. They can win the Necrotia lane, but we just have so much value now. Ross, it seems like your break is going to be extended just a touch longer. We will absolutely go ahead and take the 2 cubes. We won 2 out of the 3. We'll take the 2 cubes. Let's go ahead and jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have Godly Julie. The first location is Dark Dimension. We have the Soul Stone, so we can get some early additional draw. We can hide our Atuma in the Dark Dimension instead of behind Invisible Woman, which gives us another out for like a big power output. The Kitty Pride for the opponent could be running like a standard bounce deck, or it could be the more counter-heavy version. But with this middle location being Baxter Building, I think we're going to lean more towards the Invisible Woman into Atuma in the Baxter Building, depending on if it looks like they have something like a Rogue or anything similar that might... Ooh. And then Project Pegasus is interesting here. I don't know if it's good, but it's interesting nonetheless. We can do something like this. This will clear up some additional reach in the Project Pegasus lane. We have the Carnage that gets a little bit bigger. We have the discount on our death. We're going to hide Atuma into the Baxter Building location, hoping that they don't Enchantress or Rogue our Invisible Woman. That will give us a pretty good surprise burst. The Invisible Woman into Atuma is something that I have lost to more times than I care to admit, and it's just such a surprising burst of power when you're only expecting like that 4 power push or 4 energy push, and then all of a sudden it's 10 extra power in that lane. Now, they do have a pretty big high roll, so they do have a copy of our death, unfortunately. So depending on how else we play this one, it might not be worth it to destroy any additional cards. I don't know when White Queen got started getting added to Bounce Style deck. They do have the Ghost Spider, so they pull that out of the Baxter Building location. Right now, that is our kind of biggest hope, is that they pull too much out and that our Atuma is able to reach a little bit further because of that. And so we do get the Devil Dino, which is going to be massive in either Dark Dimension or Baxter Building, depending on which one we think we need to play for. I like Devil Dino into the Dark Dimension. Next turn, maybe it's just our death into the Baxter Building lane. Maybe it's death and we move Jeff over. I don't know exactly what that looks like just yet. We could always do like a Heimdall shift. Ooh, they use a magic. Interesting bounce hybrid build. I'm curious what else is stacked in there now that you use. I mean, the black and white magic at that is a lot of magic use. That gives us an extra turn to draw into additional resources, hide additional resources. So what we're planning on doing is I'm going to hide the Shang-Chi because they play 1 more card in Limbo. That is going to put it over that Shang-Chi edge, and it should give us that little bit of advantage in being able to make sure we lock down and win that middle location. But now we can't rely on the +3 to either side anymore. But I think with Jeff, I think with Thanos, if we can draw into Mind Stone, then Thanos will actually be our 20 power resource, and I think this becomes a lot more comfortable of a win because of that. The Kitty Pryde comes down. It is going to be a 10 power resource after the last turn, after everything is said and done. We get the Heimdall shift. That's not necessarily what we're looking for here. All right, let's go all in onto the Dark Dimension lane. I think between the Atuma and the Shang-Chi, we're going to be able to steal the Limbo location away from the opponent. But I have to think that maybe... No, they did both. They did both Kitty Pryde and something else, 2 additional cards in Dark Dimension. So it's not the death they played, but they do have that as a potential resource. So we have to respect that. We're putting a lot of power into the left lane, into Dark Dimension. They go Kitty Pryde into the Limbo lane, and that is not going to be enough. We have the sneaky 10 power Atuma, supported by the supported by the Shang-Chi that is going to decimate that entire middle location while leaving our Atuma safe and sound, because it reveals after Atuma, so after Invisible Woman effect goes off, so it's after the end of the game technically, so Atuma doesn't get destroyed. We are able to heftily hold down the left and the middle locations. We steal the 2 cube game in the process. We will go ahead and take it. Let's jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have a Crotist. The first location is Shuri's Lab, so playing additional cards there early will allow us to double up on the power, so something like Venom is pretty beneficial there. We're going to use Mind Stone. We'll pull out a couple of our stones. We might do maybe both a Soul Stone and a Time Stone this turn. We could do the Time Stone here, the Soul Stone here. That will draw into 2 additional cards. Next turn, we can always go Space Stone plus Venom to double down here. Maybe I want to save the Reality Stone until after the Venom goes off, just in case Reality Stone turns it into, like, I don't know, Death's Domain, Altar of Death, and then all of a sudden our Venom gets destroyed. And so we will save it for a little bit later on. The Crotist, their first play is an M'Baku, interestingly enough. Ooh, Oscorp Tower comes down here. Is it worth it? We have 4 energy. Is it worth it to do something where they only have 1 space to play in that location? We could do Carnage. We could do Carnage, Space Stone, Power Stone. And then we have all of that space to play, but I don't think we do. I think instead we're going to go with the original. We're going to go Power Stone here. We're going to go Venom. That is going to be a really large, high-powered Venom. After that, we have the Reality Stone to change locations that we think are unfavorable, depending on what the rest of the Crotist's deck looks like. So this is going to be a very big Venom because he will absorb and then he will double. So it's a 26 power massive unit already that we could pull into the big house. If we get our Ghost Spider here, we can pull that Venom. And no, we don't. Unfortunately, we do not. Let's go ahead and change the Shuri's Lab location. I'm actually gonna do Space Stone as well. And we'll throw a Carnage in there as well. So we're gonna do the Space Stone. If they don't Shang-Chi this turn, then we're gonna yank our Venom from here over into this lane. And that way he's safe from Shang-Chi, because it has to be a 1, 2, or 3 cost card, or 0 or above 6 to be able to be played. And I want to make sure that it is safe and sound. Carnage is going to clear up the additional space. We do have the Heimdall to shift it back into Muir Island after the end of the game if we want to. Now this looks like a Lockjaw rotation deck that didn't get lucky with their Lockjaw rotation. I know a lot of those decks did end up cutting the Shang-Chi, so I'm a little bit more confident or comfortable than I was before. But I still want this to end after turn 6. I'm not going to extend the game with the magic. It was in consideration because then it allows us to do something like Devil Dino into a Heimdall, and we could play the Heimdall. Next turn we could look for like a Shang-Chi, but I didn't think it was beneficial enough for us. They do get the Jane Foster down. They move the Vision into Muir Island, so they will be able to maneuver it across the board. They have the Wasp, but not the High Evolutionary version of the Wasp, interestingly enough. We may be shooting ourselves in the foot, but I think we're going to Heimdall shift the Venom back over into this lane. Let's do it like this. I want Jeff to go into the big house along with the Death to give us a chance there. We're also going to play the Heimdall here. They could do a Mjolnir and an Odin, which would be massive. It'd be really hard to overcome, but right now I think their thought process is they've lost the Thor lane. I don't think that is what they focus on. Maybe they move the vision over and then try that. We're going to give this a shot. Let's see. Let's see how they play it. We have the Heimdall come down. The Venom in the Muir Island location, I think it gives us the comfortable win there. They do get the one trigger of Mjolnir. I think between... Oh, Magneto is not going to be enough. They tried to Magneto into the lane that we had played our death. The two big resources would stack up, but between the Heimdall and the massive Venom, we were able to still hold down the win. Not a comfortable way to win. And most of the games with this deck are not going to be just straightforward, comfortable wins. But I think with that comes the ability to find the end of games more often, so you have more chances to get big cube games in the process. So we're going to go ahead and take the win. Let's go ahead and jump over into one more. All right, next up we have PUI. The first location is the Raft, and that's not terrible for this deck. We have Space Stones, so we're going to draw additional cards. We have Carnage to clear it up and consolidate that location. Just quite a bit of benefit. Ooh, this Squirrel Girl tells me this is either a Destruction deck or a Patriot, but seeing it dropped on turn 1, that I lean much more towards Destruction than anything else. I'm going to use Time Stone here. Next turn, we can do the Reality Stone, but I want to destroy... But I want to cap out the location, get the free resource before we change it, before we consolidate the lane. So we're just going to do Time Stone here. And they are running a Destruction or Destroy deck as well. So we know that our death is going to be very, very free. Over the course of the game, I assume they have a Killmonger. And right now, we have the benefit of them not knowing what kind of deck or what our deck really entails. And so let's go ahead and do the Reality Stone, the Carnage. We do have the 1 extra energy. That's okay. We're going to get the free 6-cost resource that we can hide behind Invisible Woman if we want to. So even if they have a wave, we are perfectly fine. We get the She-Hulk, not bad. Not great, but not bad. We get the Raft resource, and they are not able to quite make that reach. And, ooh, Murder World is not what I wanted to see. But it's not the worst either. Unless they have a null, it just kind of puts us more on a level playing field. And we did get the benefit of getting the She-Hulk out of it. Oh, they get a Super Scroll from the X-Men. And we get a Lady Sif, which discards our Heimdall. There goes our surprise factor, our surprise shift, unfortunately. Let's go ahead and... I don't know how we navigate this one. We're going to do Soulstone, but they get a copy of the Soulstone, so maybe we eventually hit it with a Venom and destroy it. I don't know. I don't know how we play against a free Super Scroll that the opponent got from the X-Mansion, and then ours discarded our surprise burst factor. So Soulstone comes down. We get a Tuma, which a Tuma could be pretty decent here. The cool thing here is that they've also copied our Invisible Woman, so they can't reveal or do anything to stop us in this lane or this location. We have the surprise burst or surprise factor from the Atuma. I assume they have a death somewhere, but they're not going to be anticipating the Atuma play to come down. I can almost guarantee it. We're going to have the extra 10 power here, and then we can look to leverage the rest of our burst. We do get Venom, which is not terrible for us, because now we can do some kind of crazy things. We can pull one of these into like one of these. It takes away this ongoing from this lane, so then we can lean in with like a death. We're yanking this Venom over into this location. We have the Atuma here. I don't think we eat the She-Hulk, because if they have null, we're just making that absurdly large. We have the free She-Hulk anyways. I don't think they run a death, but just in case, we're gonna hide 9 extra power here. Let's go ahead and consolidate this lane, yank it over, and then we'll see how best to navigate this last turn. They play 2 cards. We are yanking our Venom. It is under the 9 power range, so ooh, the wave is scary. And then we don't know what this card is. We have no idea what's under this hood. So we have to... Oh, well, we're already winning here. We're probably already winning here. Let's go death, or we're not winning here. They're winning here. But I think the death here would be enough. The surprise factor. I'm glad we threw the fake She-Hulk into this lane, or the free She-Hulk, because that's going to give us a little bit of surprise element. Let's go ahead and lock in the death. The wave was big. I don't know that many people running the death wave now. Ooh, the leader puts us into a tie in this left lane. And that is going to be, I think, more than we can handle. I don't think we win the tiebreaker. It's close. Wait, maybe we do? It's very, very close. We do. We do hold it down just barely because of the just massive reach that the hidden Atuma, the hidden She-Hulk had. And the wave was very, very close. We will take the 2 cubes. Let's go ahead and jump over, I think, into one more. This one's incredibly fun. We just keep finding ourselves in winning positions. Let's jump over into one more and see how it goes. All right, next up we have Viking Prince. Unfortunately, we don't have any of our stones in our starting hand, so that limits the kind of reach of this deck. Kind of like with any Thanos deck, you need the additional draw, the additional consistency to make sure you get your big pieces and you get value on the board. And without that, it becomes a lot more lackluster over time. I'm going to go ahead and play Reality Stone. I think they probably have a Storm that would be good for us to change eventually, but we also need to get just something on the board. And so the Reality Stone will allow us to draw into a card. Hopefully, Venom into Cloning Vats is actually pretty solid for us. Maybe we can draw a Stone. We can draw a Stone. We can play our Stone plus Jeff. We'll get another Jeff in the hand. We'll be able to do Venom next turn. We can even do the Stone plus Venom next turn to continue to just cycle that power. And the cool thing with Cloning Vats is that every single time you play another Venom, you are increasing his power dramatically. And so we're going to move the Jeff out. Going to use the Venom here, consolidate all of this power. He's going to retain all of it and come back into our hand as like an 11 power 3-cost card or something pretty large, as long as we have the hand space, which we do, because the Power Stone is not generating additional draws for us. And so it's a 10 power Venom that's going to just continue to come back into our hand time and time again. Now they have the additional reach with the Cyclops, which is big, but we're hoping that our Venom is bigger. We can do the Devil Dino to the right. We can take a turn, and then any negative affliction here doesn't necessarily matter too much. It may impact their Abomination coming down. It's okay. The Spider-Woman comes down here as well, so it's negatively afflicting this card a second time. And so we either do something kind of snazzy like a Heimdall Shift, which would bring our 14 power Devil Dino here, plus move the Venom over. But I want to be able to comfortably say that we are ahead in each of the locations. With this, I expect an Abomination, though. Do we think our Devil Dino is enough? That is what it comes down to. Because we're going to be able to get a really big Venom here. We're going to yank it over into the Isle of Silence. All of those cards from the Cloning Vats will make sure that our Devil Dino stays big. But just is it enough? It really depends on where the opponent plays at. The Abomination and Cloning Vats is fine, depending on what they play over here. They play the Thing. And so I think we will be able to outshadow and outvalue their cards here. With the Venom that comes down, with the Soul Stone, drawing a card, generating an additional card in hand, we will now get a copy of Venom, keeping our Devil Dino very, very big in Wakanda. And then Ghost Spider is going to do the rare thing of being able to give us that additional value and shift those cards over into the lane that we need them into. We are able to hold down the 2-cube win as a result. We will absolutely take a victory versus a High Evolutionary deck anytime that we can. And with that one, we are going to go ahead and end the video here. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to give it a like and a comment down below. And as always, this has been TLSG. Later, guys.